I think there are three factors holding global economic growth. So the first one is fiscal consolidation in advanced countries. Now, as we know, it's needed, but it's slowing growth. The second is uncertainty about what policymakers are going to do, political uncertainty, if you want, both in Europe, and mainly in Europe at this point, but also in the US, in Japan. And then the third is a slowdown in emerging markets, in the main ones, China, India, Brazil. Now, because the world now is so interconnected, what happens in one part of the world has an effect on the rest of the world, and so all these things are combining to slow down growth. To avoid a sharp downturn, it's very clear what's needed is that policymakers take the right decisions. So if you look at Europe, the Eurozone now has put in place, in principle, an architecture which is very coherent. The problem is implementation, and they really have to implement it. That's the key. In the US, we're getting closer to this thing called the fiscal cliff, which is a potential increase in many taxes, which would be a catastrophe if it happened that quickly. So here it's clear that there has to be put in place a fiscal plan, not only for this year, but for the coming years, which is credible. It's clear that emerging economies are affected by what's happening in advanced economies for two channels, the usual ones. The first one is trade, so lower exports. The other is financial. They basically face capital flows, inflows, outflows. That complicates their life a lot. In some cases, you have more than that. You actually have a weakness of domestic demand, which may be due to policy, fiscal or monetary, and that is adding to the slowdown. So in general, indeed, for the main ones, China, India, Brazil, we've revised our forecast down quite a bit.